Welcome to the 2018 RMC Washoe County Sheriff's Debate. Today's debate and forum is sponsored by the RMC Silver sponsors, and it's held at the Atlantis Casino and Hotel in Reno, Nevada. Ray Rocha is our host and the president of the RMC, and Cole Azar will be our moderator. Just a reminder also, this will be up on a podcast. You can listen to it on your smartphone device by going and searching on a podcast, or on iTunes, you can search Meet the Voter or Timelines of Success. Now, without further ado, let's get right into this debate.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our meeting, February meeting for the Republican Men's Club of Northern Nevada. I'm Ray Rocha. I'm president, among other things, chief janitor, bottle washer. Anyway, we're really happy you were able to attend on this sunny day with a lot of snow. Anyway, without further ado, I'll introduce the candidates in order, and then after we've introduced each one, they'll have a minute to speak. First candidate, and I have him stand up, Darren Balaam. Next one, Sherman Box. Next one, Alan Fox. Next candidate, Adam Hopkins. And the two lovely ladies, Heidi Howell and Kim Myers. I believe the way it was, the drawing was that Sherman be the first one to start for 1 minute. Is that correct, Bill?
Darren.
Oh, wait, what do I know? Darren.
We ready? All right. Good afternoon. My name is Darren Balaam, and I'm running to be your next Washoe County Sheriff. I'm a fifth-generation Nevadan. I've worked at the Sheriff's Office for over 2+ decades in the Operations, Detention, and Administration Bureaus. I rose to the ranks to the executive level of Chief Deputy. I have a bachelor's from the University of Nevada, Reno, a master's from the University of Louisville, so I have the experience it takes to run an organization and make the tough decisions we're going to face in the future. But more importantly, I have the passion and dedication for this profession and community. Moving forward, my campaign is going to focus on addressing mental health within the detention facility, collaborating with governmental entities and service providers in the community to address regionally our mental health within the community, domestic violence, breaking that chain of violence, protecting those victims, and focusing on the offenders, seniors, and ensuring we protect them from the predators that are exploiting them. And I also look forward to your support and vote in the next election. Thank you.
Ready? Good afternoon. My name is Sherman Box. I started my policing career in 1977 in Sparks Police Department, where I spent 26 years, achieving the rank of lieutenant. In 2014, I was brought out of retirement by the current Sheriff, Chuck Allen, to run his Operations Bureau as his chief deputy.
They're asking if you guys stand up when you speak. You can't see you.
Sure.
I got it.
I grew up in Sparks, Nevada, lived there all my life. I still live there. I have lots of ideas about improving sheriffing, including, more regionalization of policing, not consolidation, just adding to what is already regionalized in this area. I also, okay. Is that better, Roger? Okay. Also, I want to, staffing is an issue with the Sheriff's Office. I have an idea to bring retired people back in an intermittent and investigative assistant position to help with duties that other deputies are now being taken off the street and out of the jail to do. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Alan Fox. I pretty much grew up here in the Reno area. When I graduated high school at Sparks High School, I entered the United States Army as a paratrooper. I served there for 3 years. Most of my time was up in Alaska. After getting out, a short time afterwards, I was hired by the Napa Sheriff's Department in Napa, California. And I went to the academy in 1984. I worked mostly patrol. We were also deputy coroners. And then when I came to Reno with the Safety 88 proposition, and I was fortunate enough to work in special assignments. Cold case detective was my favorite. And I also worked with the NRIC. I would like to move forward with dealing with child abuse and school public safety. Those issues are in the forefront now, and we need to deal with them. And I'm pro Second Amendment.
Hi, my name is Adam Hopkins. Let's see, I just want to say thank you to everybody up here. You are the luckiest voters in Washoe County. I am telling you, this is a great group of people. They care about the sheriff's office. They care about you. About me. I worked for the sheriff's office for almost 26 years. I spent half of my career on the patrol side. I spent the other half of my career on the detention side. I have the depth and the breadth of experience to deal with what is coming to this agency. I have a bachelor's degree in education from New Mexico State University. I have attended the Senior Management Institute for Police. I'm a DOJ auditor for jails and prisons around the country. I travel the country teaching on high liability topics for jails and prisons. My platform items are bridging the gap between the sheriff's office, law enforcement, and communities, about recidivism, lowering crime rates through giving folks help prior to them committing crimes if they're drug addicted or alcohol addicted. Please check out my website, hopkinsforsheriff.com.
Good afternoon. My name is Heidi Howe, and I started in law enforcement with the Reno Police Department in the late 80s, 1988 to be exact. And as I moved through my career, I decided that culturally I think I fit in better with the sheriff's office, and I switched over to the sheriff's office in 1991. I rose up through the ranks from deputy to sergeant to lieutenant to captain. I retired from the sheriff's office last year in April, and I was running the largest bureau in the sheriff's office, which was the jail, a $56 million budget. And why am I running for sheriff? I care about this community, and I'm qualified for the job. We need to jump out there and deal with the growth that's happening in our community, and that means we need to work together better. So I want to get through territory and ego and work together better and bring some innovation to the agency and move forward, making our community safer. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Kim Meyer, and I am running for Washoe County Sheriff. Thank you all for being here. I did spend most of my life here in Reno. I came when I was 9. I graduated from Little Flower, Reno High Schools, and the University of Nevada, Reno with a bachelor's in criminal justice. I began my auspicious career with the Sheriff's Office in 1991. I worked my way through detention, patrol, and ultimately into detectives as a deputy. And I believe I did my most important work in detectives as a crimes against children investigator. I did promote and work my way back through the agency through detention, patrol, and I retired as the sergeant in crimes against persons and crimes against children. I absolutely have a passion for working to protect our most vulnerable populations, those people that are victims of domestic violence, sexual violence, sex trafficking, the elderly, and the child victims of sexual abuse and physical abuse. I will continue to do that work as your next Washoe County Sheriff.
All right, everybody can hear me? All right, first, I want to introduce myself. My name is Cole Azary, and I will be moderating the question portion of this debate. You guys are all familiar with the rules. Ray went over them with you, and so did Bill. So as you know, you'll have 1 minute. There'll be a question. You'll have 1 minute each to answer the question. If you wish to do a rebuttal, just motion, signal to me somehow, let me know that you want to, and you will get 30 seconds. If there's no rebuttals, then we'll move on to the next question. All right? Are we all ready to go? All right. So and in the order will be the first question will go to Sherman Box. The next question will start with Mr. Alan Fox, and down the line. All right. So the first question we have from Brian, and you'll please excuse me if I slaughter the last name, Washoe. As the top law enforcement official, what will your policy be in holding and turning over to ICE illegal immigrants?
This is a very serious topic. Illegal immigration is a federal issue. It's handled by the federal government. We, as law enforcement in this valley, are subject to them enforcing it. I will say, however, when they get to the facility, as your sheriff, I have an obligation to make sure that the community is safe. So I will be working closely with ICE to make sure that they do their job. But additionally, if they are in the facility for some other crime, I will deal with the court of jurisdiction and maybe work on their bail increased. This is for violent people. I got to tell you, I can't believe even undocumented people want violent people in their neighborhoods. So I will work with ICE and I will work with the local jurisdictions to make sure violent criminals are not released from the facility.
Thank you. Mr. Alan Fox.
Okay, I just make sure it was on. It is a federal issue, but I worked in the gang unit with Darren Balaam at one time, and ICE was very integral part in us dealing with some of the gang problems. And when we had violent gang people, that were illegal, of course, we want to take care of that issue. As I said, it's a federal problem, but I'm not going to deny ICE holding somebody in our facility because whatever's popular in politics and whatever the flavor of the day is. Because we work closely with the federal agencies, the FBI, ICE, ATF, and we all have the same goal in mind. And so my opinion is if they're here illegally and they end up in jail, that could become ICE's problem, but we don't proactively go looking for illegal immigrants.
All right, thank you very much. So the way we deal with ICE detainees now is they come in, and we have an ICE officer that actually sits in that booking lobby. So anytime somebody is arrested that they believe or we believe is an illegal, ICE is automatically involved. It's almost always staffed. I don't see that changing. I agree that we're not going to be going out and knocking on doors. However, and the reason that is because we're not going to have the room to put them in there in the first place. I like the idea of increasing some bail on these violent offenders. They're not all violent offenders, and we know that. So, we hear all the time about this being a welcoming city, and boy, I was a little taken back by what was a welcoming city. Well, I've come to the determination that what we've been doing will not change. If they come here and they get in trouble, they're going to go to jail. We've all taken people to jail. We love taking people to jail around here. So we can do that. We can accommodate.
Ms. Heidi Howe.
So to add to that, the policy of the Sheriff's Office right now is that we respond to calls for service, and we do not want anybody to be a victim of crime in our community. So we don't ask people if we're responding to a call for service if they're undocumented. However, we have people that come into the facility that are foreign-born. All that information is put into a database, and there is a daily report that is provided to ICE. It is their decision to come in and interview the individuals that are listed as foreign-born. If they make a decision that they want to keep that individual, they will submit a warrant, and that person will then be dealt with by ICE. They'll either move them to another facility, they'll deport them, but that is how that works. I support that. I do not want violent offenders in our community, but I also want all individuals in our community to report crime and not be a victim.
And Ms. Kim Meyer.
Thank you. It is my opinion that if you are here and undocumented and you become known to the police because you've committed a crime, then absolutely that is on you and you come into custody. I have no intention to change the philosophy that we currently work under in our cooperation with ICE. I absolutely believe that we will detain them as long as we have that detainer from ICE. and let ICE take care of them. I too will not proactively go out and look for people that are just here for immigration violations. If they are here and they commit a crime, then that's on them, and I will continue to have that cooperative arrangement with ICE at this time. Additionally, having the ICE inmates, the feds actually pay us to house them. So that is also an important piece of our budget. So they're not costing us anything to hold them there. So I believe we can continue that aspect as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Darren Balaam.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so first of all, like everybody said, this is a federal issue, and I am hopeful that our congressional delegation will continue to engage in talks and come up with a solution. But like every sheriff, this is a mandate of every county in our state to maintain a jail. And there's policies and procedures of how we detain and hold individuals in our detention facility. And I will honor those forms, the immigration detainer, the I-247, the warrant for arrest for alien, the I-200, and the detainer or release of an alien, the I-203 forms. And when those are submitted, like any other probable cause form, when we book somebody into our facility, I will honor those and detain those individuals because like everybody else, we want to make this community safe, and we want to ensure that those that have committed crimes and are out to prey upon our communities remain in our custody and go through the proper criminal justice system. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, just for clarification, we'll just remind everyone this is the rebuttal period. So if any of you would like to do rebuttal, just raise your hand. You do get 30 seconds. All right, seeing no rebuttals, we'll move on to the second question. The second question was submitted by Ms. Vicki Maltman. The question is, what is your administrative experience with running a department such as the sheriff's office? The first person to answer this will now start with Mr. Alan Fox.
Yeah, I'll admit I don't have much experience working the administrative side. I have been the lead detective on several high-profile cases, and I do know where morale breaks down within the department. Morale is a huge issue with me, and I've seen where I've seen morale. I've seen it when it's good and when it's bad, and I would really. Good morale makes for good service for the public, for the Washoe County, and for the city of Reno, and that is essential to running a good police department. It keeps complaints down. It keeps everybody happy. As far as administrative, I've been around it a lot, and I know exactly what to expect, and I know. I would handle mostly everything with an investigative twist to it to get to the bottom. As Reagan would say, trust but verify. Thank you.
Mr. Adam Hopkins.
Great. My administrative or executive experience, or admin experience, so I spent time on patrol as a supervisor. Obviously administrative, most of that, if not all of that, was up in Incline, where we were very autonomous. We had to deal with all of the issues that came up. Seldom did we have a captain up there or a lieutenant. When I decided to transfer down to the jail, I rose up in the ranks to lieutenant, and then at one point was chosen as the executive lieutenant. There's only one of those in the entire department. At that level, I was the acting captain, while my current captain was at the FBI Academy at some point, and so I had all the lieutenants working for me at that time, and at one point I was promoted to the rank of captain. During these times, I dealt with that $56 million budget that Heidi spoke about. I dealt with personnel issues. It's very, very complex, but it's very, very important that your next sheriff understands these issues.
Thank you. Ms. Heidi Howe.
All right. So the sheriff is really a CEO of a $111 million budget and 714 employees. My experience, 20 years, was in a supervisory or command level position. So that meant at one point I had a budget of $56 million I was responsible for, about 350 employees, and everything that goes with that. And then also the logistics of running a jail, which has about 1,300 inmates at times. It's been averaging around 1,150. So a lot of things come along with that. It's very complicated, complex, as he mentioned. It's like running a small city, particularly when you're running the jail, and it is the most important function that the sheriff's office has. Yes, we have a lot of other responsibilities, but that is the major one. So as far as administrative roles, done everything from running training, research and development, ran the academy, training for the jail. So that's the foundation of all of our deputies that start at the sheriff's office. So a little bit of experience there.
And Ms. Kim Meyer.
Thank you. I have a unique skill set that I garnered from my supervising. In overseeing numerous officer-involved fatality investigations, homicides, serial killings, serial sex abuse cases, I learned asset and resource allocation. I learned budget allocation and constraint. I learned both cross-jurisdictional relationships, allocations of their resources, and directives. I planned, drafted, and implemented policies relative to child abuse investigations and relative to sex offender regulations. I manifested a cooperative team network. Thank you. A cooperative team network that I will continue to do as the sheriff. We worked in collaboration in many of those investigations, most notably the officer-involved fatalities. And in doing those investigations, you work in the capacity of, as you are that CEO of that investigation. So I will continue to work in that manner for the sheriff's office. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Darren Balaam.
So first of all, I had the privilege of working for 4 great sheriffs and following their legacy to take things that each of them had that possessed of great leadership skills. But as I noted, I worked in all 3 bureaus, administration, operation, and detention, as a line level, and then promoting through the ranks as sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and chief deputy. I also had the opportunity to command the SWAT team, detention response team, the hostage negotiation team, as well as supervise almost all of our tactical units, our motors, K-9, our regional intelligence center, our Northern Nevada counterterrorism center when we had that. So I have the experience of managing that $115 million budget we have now, the 750 employees we employ at the sheriff's office, and I was part of the command and executive team when we cut $21 million, 85 positions. We still implemented crime strategies to address crime in our community. We still maintained a safe and secure detention facility, and we came in at or under budget each and every one of those times during the rough times of this recession. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sherman Box.
Thank you very much. I think running this agency is entirely about leadership, first off. You lead by example. As a Sparks lieutenant, which was, even though a mid-management position, there was budgetary responsibilities. I was responsible for a line item for the training budget.
To where we can hear you, sir.
For the training budget, as well as many other issues. As a chief deputy running the operations bureau for Chuck Allen, I also had budgetary responsibilities. But the entire thing boils down to me about leadership and having people that you can depend on to spend the money properly and take care of the people that need taken care of, which equates to safety in the community.
Thank you. This is the rebuttal period for the second question. Do we have any desire for rebuttals? All right, seeing none. Just a quick note, if you can keep the microphone at about 6 inches from your mouth, that way we can definitely hear you in the back of the room. All right, we're going to move on to the third question then. And this will start with Mr. Adam Hopkins. So the third question. This comes from Assemblywoman Jill Tolles. Since we just heard about the issue of sex trafficking in our region, what are your plans to address this problem if you are elected to sheriff?
Well, we are in the top 10 in the nation, which you didn't hear that, but it's true. We're in the top 10, which is not something I'm proud of. This is very, very complex. It's very transient, and that's why I think we have the problem we do, is that we have such a transient population. We also have the sex trade here in Nevada, and that brings them in as well. We also have the gaming side of this and the events and all of that. So they're bringing them in. They're shipping them in from out of state half the time. So what this is an education issue, number one. So as sheriff, I would push for education programs that we could assist local agencies in dealing with, because there are local agencies that deal with this problem as well. Work with them to educate the people in the casinos, the folks at the ballparks, wherever it is, we can work with them on that. And then participate in regional operations to deal with these folks and to liberate them.
Thank you. Ms. Heidi Howe.
All right, is this working? Okay. What folks don't understand is that we have, on average, about 750 people on a daily basis that are involved in this sex trafficking trade. Now, we have a unique opportunity, having the only regional jail, to address this issue on the part of the victim. So, if we have individuals that come into custody for sex trafficking, also known as prostitution locally, these are folks that we have an ability to bring people into the jail and talk with these folks and provide them resources to get out of the situation that they're in. A lot of these folks feel hopeless. They feel like they're in a situation that they cannot get out of. So here's an opportunity for us to bring people in, connect them to resources, and get them out of the trade, and hopefully catch the people that have put them in it in the first place.
Thank you. Ms. Kim Meyer.
I have one word for this: education. So educating the public, law enforcement, and the victim. Right now, as far as sex trafficking goes, in the culture of law enforcement, we have the unfortunate habit of blaming the victim. This absolutely needs to change. We need to do our investigations better. We need to have victim-centered and trauma-informed investigations of these. Also, in addition to having the culture change within law enforcement, we also need to set up those resources for those victims. So we don't only just need to educate the victims. Often they come from foster homes and have very little education themselves, but they have no support network. It is a much bigger problem than just telling them about the resources that are here, but rather we need to provide the resources for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Darren Balaam.
Okay, first of all, Cretan Research Center has done a study, and 1,500 people are trafficked each month in this area at the age of 14. So education is one of those. We have to train our professionals, both medical and law enforcement, to identify and educate so we can identify those victims when we encounter them. Because oftentimes they're in hysteria, their emotions are mixed. Secondarily, we have to find funding. And thanks to Assemblywoman Jill Tolles, there is funding due to the last legislation. There's also funding within the federal government to help form a task force. We have an Internet Crimes Against Children task force up at the Washoe County Sheriff's Office that addresses children. We need to partner with that unit and identify and work regionally within this community, utilizing that funding, utilizing education, so that we can not only address and educate everybody in this community, but we can collaborate with those children that we know move into being trafficked as they get older, and hopefully make an impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sherman Box.
Thanks very much. We as police have a tendency to look only as an investigation. And we forget that sex trafficking doesn't only involve children. It involves adults as well. And as investigators, we have teams that go down and work and try and arrest these people for prostitution, both men and women. And the investigation stops when they get to the booking area. What needs to continue is a better investigation to find out, A, how they got into this situation, and maybe the resources that Kim talked about, offering them those resources so they can get out and find out if they're in a volatile situation already. Also, the Attorney General has a task force in place for sex trafficking, and we as regional law enforcement should be partnering with those people and following their lead, that they have access to the funds that's needed to make sure that this issue is addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alan Fox?
Test. Okay. Yeah, I've worked with Operation Safe Streets out of Las Vegas during my tenure as a detective. And one thing I noticed was that a lot of times we'll interview the prostitutes while they're in jail. And what I had done on several of my cases was after they got out of jail and they were more comfortable to go interview them. We need a centralized intelligence unit that will deal with these high-profile cases. And it wasn't that long ago, a retired IRS agent was arrested for sex trafficking. I don't remember her age. I believe it was about 14 years old. That kind of was no surprise to some people who knew what was going on in the street. But you have to combine Reno, Sparks, Washoe County, and the federal agencies to run down this intelligence information and to stay on top of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Okay, no rebuttal. Oh, you have one rebuttal? Ms. Kim Meyer, 30 seconds.
Can I take everybody else's 30 seconds too?
I wish.
I just want to be perfectly clear that I don't believe throwing resources at the victim is the answer, but rather these victims have been broken down to the bare minimum. They are barely surviving. I want to give them the resources, partner with them to build them back up so they become thrivers. So it's not so much just telling them, here are your resources. It might actually be the fact that we have to move them out of the area, because often when we take them out of their relationship, that perpetrator finds them again. So we sometimes need to move them out of the area and build those resources around them.
All right, thank you. All right, you have one, Mr. Adam Hopkins.
Yes, there needs to be an aggressive media campaign towards this, and we can't leave out the school system. We have people, we have kids that we can target for information. That's where this is all starting. So the earlier we can get into these schools and talk to these children, give them information, and talk to the parents so that they understand what to look for, the better. But I think a media blitz on this information is imperative.
Do we have any additional requests for rebuttal time? Oh, I can only do one, ma'am. Sorry. All right. Seeing no further rebuttals, we will move on to question 4. This question will be, the first person to answer will be Ms. Heidi Howe. Question 4 was submitted by Ms. Karen Conrad. What are we currently doing to protect our kids while they're at school, and what, if any, changes or improvements do you recommend?
All right, talk about a hot button topic.
Exactly.
Yeah. There are different jurisdictions, as most people know. We have school police, and that is their primary responsibility, is the jurisdiction of the school. However, the sheriff's office and all law enforcement in our community work very closely together to respond to these incidents. So I'm not a fan of turning our schools into a fortress. I do think we need to improve education and take a look at what's causing the foundational issues that are going on in our schools. And a big chunk of that is the isolation and ostracism of kids in schools. And there have been some amazing work done with some kids out of Florida called We Dine Together. And I don't know if you're aware of this. So these are kids that are reaching out to the kids that nobody's eating with at school. Everybody's shoving them aside and not talking with them. And they're bringing them in and having conversations with them, even if they're awkward, if they have different disabilities, but they're working with them to reduce these incidents of isolation, which causes the lashing out.
Thank you. Ms. Kim Myers?
I am appreciative of the efforts that are already happening to make our schools more safe. The single point of entry, the closing off of the campuses themselves. And quite frankly, because I have kids in the school system, I am kind of all for making them fortresses, but I'm also for educating the people that watch our kids while we're at work. So I want them to think outside the box. I want them to have active shooter training. I want those kids having active shooter drills. I want them to know that there are other ways that they can get out of that school besides the front door. I want them to know that if need be, they can go outside of a window. So I do want those educational components in there. I am for more cooperation working with school police. Yes, that's their primary function, but it is all of us responding to them. And absolutely, we, the agencies that are not school police, need to better understand and better know those schools so we can respond appropriately.
Thank you. Mr. Darren Balaam.
So let me tell you what we're doing. I sit on the Safe and Healthy School Commission. So we had a council come out and do an assessment of all our schools. And some of those assessments we're actively finding funding and we're implementing now. So the perimeter, we are putting perimeters around all the schools. Single point of entry, that is going out for an RFP. A PA system, we identified many of the schools. A PA system back in the day was just that. Only in the gym and not throughout the entire schools to alert the schools. So we're going out and identifying funding for that. We're also looking at the locks for the doors internally. So we have a priority list already that we're actively working on. What we did about 10 years ago when I was a SWAT commander is we worked on active shooting. At Minogue, we did it 2 years in a row. And since then, each year, we've participated in picking a school, working with the school district, so that we go out and we teach our kids exactly what happens. We teach our law enforcement, we teach our administrators, our teachers, how to keep our kids safe. And we will continue to do that. And that's exactly what I look to focus on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sherman Box.
Thanks very much. Every agency in this valley does active shooter training, and I think that's critically important, but I believe this starts with the children. I think we need to teach our kids that it's okay to say, hey, I think Johnny's in trouble. No one is going to know better if a child is going to go off than the other children. So I think it starts with educating those children so that they know it's okay to talk to somebody and make a safe place for them to talk about some other child that they may think may be in trouble. Additionally, I'm not certain that securing in place is the answer. I think there's been studies that everybody knows you do that, so the bad guys know where to go to find you. Absent some sort of locking process in the class so that they can't get there, but I think bullets can go through doors too, so maybe better education about how to escape rather than to secure in place. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Alan Fox.
Yeah, I believe in the single point entry also, but it's a different world today. It's not what it was when we went to school. There was no problem with knowing that a child had a gun for hunting, and it wasn't a big deal. And it's just a different world today. What I like about single point entry, though, you have to be able to get out of a kill zone no matter where you are. And so you need just as an airplane, you have a single point to get in, everybody's checked, but you have numerous exits. When my kids went to school, I think they had different instructions from me than they probably would have gotten from the school. But that's to get out. You could survive a jump out of a second-story window more than you can a round from an AR-15. I agree with what Darren's doing and everybody else, but we do have to have a consensus plan, or it's going to stay stalemated for forever until it happens again and again and again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Adam Hopkins.
Training, 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 run, hide, fight. That's what we need to teach these kids. But we also, and I don't want to harden our schools either. I hate to think about that, but you know what I also don't like? I don't like to think that the church that I attend has armed people in the congregation. But it's the world we live in. So I'm prepared to accept that, to keep them safe. But there's technology out there. And I would hope that groups like Darren was speaking about would embrace some of those. I found out about one just yesterday. Two guys came to me about an infrared sensor, very inexpensive infrared sensor. He asked me, would that help you in an active shooter situation? I said, if I didn't know if there was somebody in this area and that sensor could tell me that, heck yeah, it would help. There are mechanisms that go on door mechanisms so that they can't open them up. There's technology out there that's not very expensive. And let me just mention the NRA, National School Shield. It's a free program. They'll provide training, assessment of your school. I don't know if we're all using it, but if we're not, we should.
Thank you, sir. Everyone, this is the rebuttal period. Again, we have a rebuttal request from Ms. Kim Myers. Go ahead. You have 30 seconds.
I just want us to also have a broad enough thinking pattern. When we talk about protecting our kids in schools and active shooters, we think it's just some other kid coming or some other disgruntled individual. But don't make any mistake. There is the terrorism in our country now, terrorists now. They will target our children, no doubt about it. We are in a changing world. We are in a volatile world. So don't just narrow your thinking that it's just some other kid that's going to school with your kids.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further rebuttal requests? All right, seeing none, we will move on to the fifth question. This question will be, the first answer will come from Ms. Kim Myers. Let me get to the question. All right, the fifth question, this comes from Mr. Robert Archie. Explain the Washoe County Sheriff's training program in regards to how to avoid unnecessary use of force during encounters with the public.
The Sheriff's Office, well, all agencies do a really good job about training what I feel is the first level, and that's our verbal communications to de-escalate a situation. So through the academy, we train that interpersonal skills, it's sometimes called. So that's the very first line of defense when we encounter somebody. We also train more so than when I was in the academy, more of the real life situations. So they go through more simulations where they're actually in actual scenarios where they can kind of work through whether that's a situation to use lethal force or not. But there's an entire continuum of force that's applied, and it always starts, as long as the situation dictates, with that de-escalation with our verbal commands or our verbal cues to that individual. So we do a very good job training through the academy and ongoing through the FTO program.
Thank you. Mr. Darren Balaam.
So first of all, like Kim Meyer said, in the academy we train verbal skills, use of force, the continuum, but also we do situational training, or SAT training. And that is to put our people in a shoot and no shoot situation. Because we just don't want to train them on always encountering that situation where they shoot. We have to train them to assess and quickly and rapidly assess the situation, whether to shoot or no shoot. But we also provide what's called crisis intervention training. And we need to expand that. And that is recognizing and being able to look at individuals, see that they may be in a distress situation, and how to use our verbal skills, our presence, all of our tools, hopefully to de-escalate that situation or escalate depending on the actions of that person involved.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Sherman Box.
Well, training is critical, and I can tell you that situational awareness training works, but also critical incident debriefing after a critical incident and what could have been done better is also essential. Post requires a continuing education, and it used to be 26 hours, and now it's down to 12, but that's deceptive. In that 12 hours, it also includes mandated training for firearms, mandated training for defensive tactics, any impact weapons. So the additional 12 hours now is for additional training because a lot of the smaller counties weren't getting any. But verbally understanding what's happened, you can go from 0 to 60 instantly. So it's about training and telling people, showing them how, like Darren said, that you don't always have to shoot. You don't always have to. There are other avenues available. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Alan Fox.
Yeah, you had something about the Sheriff's Department there and the training. I wasn't in the Sheriff's Department. I have trained with them, though. I've worked with them, investigated some of their shootings. When there's a young officer and he's 22, 23, he or she, there's some things that they just have to experience. And what I've seen a lot is with use of forces is some people are reacting to either their fear or their anger. And that has to be physically dealt with in a training scenario where they're pulling another officer off of somebody. And you have to train for that. And I tell some people also, you need some older cops to tell the younger cops what older cops know, because you'll notice some of the busier older cops don't get as many uses of forces. And you need those types of mentors that everybody respects. And and that needs to be addressed. You physically have to work on your fear and anger. And over time, it works out well. But what old cops know is important.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Adam Hopkins.
Does gray hair make you an old cop? I don't know if any hair, what does that make you? So, training. Once again, it starts at hiring. We need to make sure that our hiring process is correct. And then as they go through the academy, we do learn some de-escalation techniques. But in my opinion, they're not sufficient. There's a gentleman out in the world here by the name of Ellis Amder. He wrote a book called The Thin Blue Lifeline. He also has a book called Safe Behind Bars. De-escalation techniques. It's what did we call it? Anyway, de-escalation techniques on steroids. It teaches you how to deal with your anger and your fear, right? I would bring these types of programs in. CIT, not sufficient. Needs to be expanded. They don't teach you how to deal with the people with mental illness like I think they should. We need to have something that actually shows them so they can deal with it in a scenario-based situation.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Heidi Howe.
All right, so we've heard a lot of people talking up here about what's being done in the academy, and we do an excellent job of training in the academy. A lot of hands-on, a lot of scenario-based issues. What happens when budgets are cut is we start to cut back, particularly when it comes to annual in-service training. So we've moved a lot of our training onto a video platform. Why? Because it's convenient, it's easy to check the box, but it does not teach you how to work through adrenaline. When you have adrenaline in your system, you get tunnel vision. And sometimes it's hard to break that tunnel vision, especially if you don't have experience dealing with people, which we all know a lot of folks are using social media and we don't talk to each other. So when we bring people on to the organization, we need to continue that scenario-based training and constantly work on that. As far as CIT or crisis intervention training, they have added a week of training to the academy so that everybody who's going through is getting that now.
Thank you. We have one request for rebuttal. Oh, I started with you, right? We have one request for rebuttal. Do we have any additionals? Another one? Mr. Darren Balaam, 30 seconds.
So the other thing I'd tell you is right now, Reno PD, they either completed or they're still in the pilot project of training the mind subconsciously. And the researchers are out of back east. They came here last year. And what it is training in the academy, new recruits, how to subconsciously assess a situation when you approach a scene. And so subconsciously, your mind is already working. We know the mind's powerful. So that's one thing I want to see those results. And if it shows as results that they've done in Europe, positive, that's one thing I would bring back and SAT training on a yearly basis. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Adam Hopkins.
Yes, this video platform for training has been nothing but a problem. It has gotten us to a point where we will press a button to press play and then go off and do our work and then come back. They're not paying attention. And if anybody tells you anything different, they're not being truthful. That's exactly what happens. Budget issues, simunitions, great training. Had training right before I retired. And they said, this almost didn't happen. I said, why? They said, because it's very expensive. I said, I could have done without the 15 flat screen TVs that we put up to provide them simunitions training. It's all about priorities.
Thank you, sir. Another rebuttal, Mr. Sherman Box, 30 seconds.
I just wanted to say, first off, thank you, Heidi, for saying check the box. Also, no one in policing wants to take a human life. So along with training to prepare for it, there needs to be follow-up training with these people so that they understand what they did was unavoidable and how to maybe deal with the fact that they may have to do it again. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kim Myers, 30 seconds.
I think for the sheriff's office, we have the unique ability to harness these and really grow these skills in the jail. Almost every single one of us starts in the jail. That's absolutely where we should be honing these skills for interpersonal communication, for CIT. You see everything in the jail: mental health, angry people, people that just cannot be rational. So we have that platform, and it's our duty as leaders to bring that in there and continue that work on a yearly basis.
Thank you. And no further rebuttals? All right. I was hoping to be able to get to one more question, but in order to not keep everyone here till dinner time, we're going to end the question period, and we're going to go to the 2-minute closing statements. At this point, I believe the start for the closing statement will come from Mr. Darren Balaam. You have 2 minutes.
So first of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming here today, because this, as a candidate, this is important to get our message out. And I want to reiterate, I've worked at the sheriff's office for 2 decades. I've worked through all the bureaus, operation, detention, administration. I've worked through the ranks, so I have the administrative experience to run the $115 million budget, to manage and lead the 750 employees. I have the educational background with a bachelor's and a master's from the University of Nevada, Reno, and the University of Louisville. And again, my campaign is focusing on mental health within the facility and the services we provide, as well as collaborating with the region and addressing mental health throughout our community. Domestic violence, breaking that chain, focusing on the offenders, while at the same time getting our victims out of that situation. Seniors, and protecting them from offenders that want to prey upon them and are exploiting them. And lastly, community integration. The sheriff's office will be integrated in every aspect of the community. We will be listening, collaborating with the citizens of this community to develop and implement programs or strategies to make our community safe, because the safety of our children and families should be second to none. And so I want to thank you again for coming. Thank you for this opportunity, and I ask for your support and vote in this year's election.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sherman Box, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much for coming, and I agree with everything Darren said, and you're going to find a lot of people that are in this race have the same issues and the same ideas, and we're all passionate about law enforcement and passionate about police work. I believe that the regionalization of law enforcement needs to be increased. Consolidation is not the answer, but regionalizing things more than they already are, I think, will not only help our budgets, but make a better service for our citizens. Safety is paramount, and we need to be cognizant that it is our job to make sure the citizens have not only a safe place to live, but an easy platform for them to report if they have a problem. Communication with the county citizens is essential. And I've had people tell me that they've dialed the number to make a report and it was the wrong number. And they would look it up online and it was still the wrong number. So there needs to be a better communication process. I have a plan for that. I have a plan to help with staffing, bringing retired officers back into the fold of the agency. All of that stuff is contained on my website. boxforsheriff.com. Thanks very much for coming. I appreciate your vote in June.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Alan Fox.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of regionalizing many of our units. As I told you about, we need a central intelligence unit that handles incoming information. They tend to be too small, and the information doesn't get properly dispersed to the appropriate units. I'm really serious about morale. With poor morale within a department, it is just caustic. It's caustic to the community, and then people don't want to show up for work. I'm a Second Amendment person myself, and I don't want my rights taken away from me because of somebody else can't handle themselves. We need to deal with those people at an individual basis. Also, it's cheaper to keep the homeless people in a homeless camp than it is in jail. And a lot of times, I worked for Reno. I brought some of them up there, and I'd get the looks, but that's kind of where we are. We have to decide, are we going to pay at this end or at that end? But morale, and I want to get back to morale because I know where it breaks down. And, as running for sheriff, I would submit to a background on myself because I've seen people promoted who wouldn't pass a background if they were recently hired. So that's where people get comfortable. That's where people want to work for people they believe in. And being a police officer, a deputy, FBI agent, it's a life philosophy. It's how you live your life, and you do it even when you're not getting paid, stopping and helping people. Anyway, foxforsheriff.com. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Adam Hopkins.
Oh, man, to come out of retirement. So I had to talk my wife into it. She said no like 3 or 4 times. Next time. So without her, I wouldn't be doing this. So I wish she was here sitting, but she's nurse, she's sleeping. Running for sheriff is a big job. I've worked for 5 sheriffs as well. And you either take what you like and get rid of the rest, or you adopt some bad habits, and I don't intend on doing that. Engaging the community. So we've heard about engaging the community, and that's absolutely essential. All of us have the same ideas. We really do. We've all been around. We've seen it all. But again, it's about who's going to actually do something. So if you check out my website, you're going to see something called the Community Action Partnerships. And you might wonder what the heck that is. Well, that's me going into different communities and saying, do you want a voice? Have you ever had a family member that died of a drug overdose or is an alcoholic? Are you a member of the LGBTI community and want to have a say in what's going on in your community and maybe be represented within the sheriff's office? The one thing I know is that I don't know everything, but I know the community does. So I'm actually now starting those programs. I have 2 started. I'm going to have something in place when I'm elected, so I don't have to spin this thing up, right? Everybody is campaigning, as they should be. But is everybody putting boots on the ground right now to do those things? I'm bridging the gap. I'm going to organizations that I don't think anybody up here is going to go to. And I don't know why. I've caught a little bit of heat for that. But I didn't get the memo that told me who to ignore. So I don't plan on ignoring anyone. Mental health is huge. But we need, if our population doubles in 10 years, which is the projection, our jail will not. We need to get ahead of the crime, and I have a plan for that. It's an organization like Crossroads. We can double or triple that. We can save this county millions and millions of dollars. HopkinsForSheriff.com. Please come out and vote. I need your support.
Thank you. Ms. Heidi Howe.
All right. So one of the big things for me is how you treat people matters. Whether it's citizens, offenders, or the men and women that are out there every single day doing the job. They need to be acknowledged for what they bring to the table and what they do. Now, what people aren't talking about is back during the recession, we lost a lot of people when it comes to our staffing. So if you go back to 2001 and you take a look at our population, we are now 100,000 people more in Washoe County than we had then. And we have fewer deputy sheriffs on the job. I know that's hard to imagine, but that is reality. And we have to find a way to move forward. Reno PD is putting 70 new officers on the road. They've already put 40 on, they're bringing on another 30. Every single one of them are going to be out there dealing with the crime in our community, which is great, but they're all going to be going to the jail. And our staff are working overtime left and right, and we're balancing our budget on overtime, and we can't do that. We have to be more responsible than that. The other thing that we do is we have contracts with outside vendors that aren't invested in our community. So our medical contract, which is $6.8 million a year, is being handled by people who fly in on their private jets, and they're making a profit off of that. I want to work with nonprofits in our community in order to save money, have better care, continuity of care, so these individuals are stabilized and they don't come back in over and over and over into the jail. So, thank you for your time. Please educate yourself on the candidates in the room. Go look at all of our websites because we're all putting ourselves out there, and I applaud every single one of us for stepping up and doing this.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Kim Myers?
Well, again, thank you to the RMC for hosting this forum. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here. I just would like to highlight some of my intentions for the Sheriff's Office. So I would like to elevate the community service to the citizens of Washoe County. I think we've fallen down there a little bit. I want it to be a community service, a customer service that's responsive and dependable and reliable and in partnership with the people of Washoe County. I want to continue to do the good work that we're already doing to protect our vulnerable populations. I want to continue to do the good work that we're doing to protect child victims of sexual abuse and physical abuse, to protect those victims of domestic violence, sexual violence, sex trafficking, and our elderly population, which is the fastest growing population in the U.S. I want to continue our dedication, support, and cooperation with the Washoe County Child Advocacy Center. They need to grow to respond to the ever-increasing needs of our huge increase in population. So I want to continue our dedication to that avenue. I want to work in better cooperation with our local law enforcement agencies as we all strive to provide better service to an ever-complex, diverse, and growing community. I want to reaffirm our commitment to work in cooperation with the County Commission so that we can all move forward. I want to be fiscally minded and responsible to the citizens of Washoe County. So I only want to advocate for regionalization where it makes sense fiscally and where it makes sense for every citizen. I spent almost 25 years in the agency dedicated to the people of Washoe County. I spent that time being dedicated to the people that didn't have a voice, and I did the jobs that no one else could or would do. So please vote for me. It's Kim Meyer for sheriff.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to take a quick minute to say thank you to all of our candidates who've shown up today. I personally, and I know the Republican Men's Club, appreciate your candid answers to these questions. We also appreciate that this did not become a knockdown, drag-out fight if there's any rivalries between any of you, as is happening in some other campaigns. So again, thank you from me and the club. Before you do leave, we would like to take a group photo of all of you for our club purposes, and then we're going to go ahead and announce the winner.
Hi, this is Bill, and thank you for watching. Go ahead and, if you're not signed in, sign into your Gmail. Go right up here and subscribe to RMC TV. And go over here, watch a couple more videos, link to our website at republicanmensclub.org. And finally, make sure you go down and leave a comment. The comments really help. See you on the next video.